Everyone, this is Vicki from Vicki Lee Acupuncture in Richmond, Virginia, and it is Sunday, January 10th, 2021, and a lot of people are tuning into the NFL playoffs today. True confession, I don't follow football, but you don't have to know that the Buffalo Bills are all over the news these days and are considered a favorite to get to the Super Bowl and possibly win it. But what I am a huge fan of is acupuncture. So what's the connection? Here with me is Dan Dominguez, who happens to be the team acupuncturist for the Buffalo Bills. So that's really exciting. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me, Vicky. Long time no see.
Long time no see. So Dan is a colleague, friend, and teacher who taught me a lot about musculoskeletal acupuncture. So can you just tell us how you wound up with the Bills and when you started?
Yeah, so out of acupuncture school, I started working in Rochester, New York, and I was working in my uncle's clinic, who's an acupuncturist as well. And
I don't think I
I
know
I never told you that. Yeah,
that.
so my uncle is a acupuncturist for 30, almost 34, 35 years at this point. And I was actually coaching his son's football team, and I had just graduated previously from my undergrad where I was a college football player. And so I was giving back, just helping his team. I thought it was going to be like kind of just helping out for the summer. And that turned into a position for the entire time I was in acupuncture school. But while I was there, I met the head orthopedic surgeon for the University of Rochester. He
Mhm.
was a coach as well. And we developed a really nice relationship. And long story short, he offered me a position at the university to start their acupuncture program. So I started that, and a couple years in, we had an intern, and his brother was the head PT for the Bills. He was a physical therapy intern as well. And at lunch one day, he asked me if I could treat his shoulder. And I used motor points and dry needle techniques to release trigger points, and we were able to fix it in one treatment. And it was kind of the perfect time. I had taken courses over the last couple of years to kind of develop that skill, and I got him at the right moment in my career where I was ready to help his shoulder. And he called his brother and said, "There's this guy in Rochester I think you should know about. Buffalo's about an hour and a half from Rochester.
Mhm.
But he's like, if any of your players need care, I think he's the guy that you should send them to." So I didn't hear, that was in the summer of 2017, and I didn't hear anything from him until the day before or a couple days before the last game of the season in 2017. He called me, and I actually treated one of the players who was having a pretty significant psoas QL spasm.
Mhm.
And after assessment, we were able to figure that out, help him. He was able to play that Sunday and went on the next year to have his final season in NFL before he retired. And it started this relationship with the team, and the physical therapist watched me work, and he was really impressed with my diagnostic skills, my testing, muscle testing, and treatment style. So he kept sending me more and more guys, and before I knew it, I was treating probably 15, 20 guys on the team privately. And later that led to the head athletic trainer, who's kind of like the head coach of the medical staff. That's who makes all the decisions. And he happened to reach out to me, interviewed me, lined up 3 players, and had me treat them all and offered me a job on the spot.
Got it.
So that's my story into the NFL.
Great. So for my patients and people out there who are not acupuncturists, um, what do your treatments? What are you doing in your treatments, and how are you touching every single person on the team right now?
I would say that I'm probably treating anywhere between 80 and 90% of the players.
Hmm.
I typically work with guys once or twice a week, depending on who it is and what their needs are.
Hmm.
I have some players that just like to get treatment as recovery. So they'll come in and we'll kind of touch on their whole lower body, And then I have other players who are battling through some injuries or some soft tissue things or tendinitises that they're dealing with. And acupuncture seems to be very effective for a lot of these guys. So what's interesting about the NFL is when you look at the guys that have been doing it for a long time, players that are in year 8, 10, 12, they seem to be doing the same things for recovery. And when rookies come into the NFL and they don't really know how to take care of their body and they're young and they just wake up and they just feel better, at some point along the way that stops and you wake up one day and everything kind of hurts and it doesn't recover and you don't feel the same as you felt, that day before. And then you start saying, like, how do I take care of my body? And one of the things I try to preach to these guys, especially the young ones, is don't wait until you're thirsty to dig the well. It's much easier to take care of problems when they're small versus trying to catch up to them when you're deep in it. When you start developing tendinitis, that means there's been a problem for a long time and you just ignored it or you worked around it and compensated. And eventually your body couldn't compensate anymore and it created pain as a way to tell you, please help me or please stop and give this rest. But for an NFL player, there is no rest. There is no stopping. So acupuncture is a go-to for these guys in order to keep their bodies functioning at a high level.
That's great. I always say prevention before intervention, and
Yeah.
you get better results. So when did you officially become the team acupuncturist?
It was the third game of the season in 2018. I got a call right before the Bills flew out to Minnesota to play the Vikings, and their head athletic trainer brought me in, and that's like how it all went down. And that next week I started. It was my first day in the facility, so we have a nice schedule. If a game is on a Sunday, I'll treat players on Tuesday and Friday. So we like to have like a +2 model, meaning it's a day after the game. So any real injuries that set in, we can address, and then 2 days prior to a game, so that we can get them prepped up and have a chance to have some guys that are maybe questionable to play, turn the tide for them a little bit. And it's a complex thing, and acupuncture is not the only thing these guys are doing, but it's certainly a part of their routine and certainly a part of what keeps them going. So I'm very happy to play a small part in that process for those players.
Well, I happened to look up the stats today in preparation for talking to you. And 2018, when you came on board, the record was 6 wins, 10 losses. The next year, 10 wins, 6 losses. And this season, thus far, 13 wins and 3 losses.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would say that's I would give kudos to you too. So
I That was also when the new head coach took over and the new athletic training staff. There was a lot of things that happened at that time, so I can't take credit for their success, but I'm happy to do a small part in their process. And those players really are the ones that choose to take care of their bodies and choose to make those decisions that they're going to stay, after they don't have to be at the facility anymore and get work done and put in that extra small work that really pays off for them.
do you ever travel with them or have you been asked?
I don't travel with the team. It's a conversation that's come up a couple times, but because of my commitments with my clinic and some of the things I'm doing here,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm not really interested in traveling at this time. Although if it were the Super Bowl, maybe I'd go.
Oh, sure.
Um, but I like to have a little bit more freedom on the weekends if I need to do some work here in Buffalo versus traveling and being kind of locked in with them for 2.5 days.
Hey, Dan, so do you happen to know how many other teams have an acupuncturist on board like the Bills do?
That's a conversation I've had with a lot of players that have come from other teams. I like to know, like, where do you get your care? Who's treating you? What do you like? Um, Especially if a player comes from somewhere and they've had good treatment and they've had good experiences. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to do what makes them feel good. Um, but from what I know, the San Francisco 49ers have two acupuncturists. One of them is a good friend of mine. Her name's Jenny Neters. I believe the Minnesota Vikings also have an acupuncturist. Um, the Miami Dolphins have a consultant who's a physical therapist that went to acupuncture school because in Florida, for a long time, it was illegal to dry needle and do things of that nature. So you had to be an acupuncturist to work with a professional team.
Mhm.
But outside of that, a lot of the players tell me that they've had to go and search for treatment outside of the facility, or if someone's going to do their needling, it's a physical therapist that works for the team or an athletic trainer that works for the team if the state allows for it. So I think it's kind of a state by state issue where if it's illegal to have dry needling in that state, an acupuncturist is who tends to get hired onto the team.
Got it. So, is there a difference? Can you explain to people between acupuncture and dry needling?
There's certainly a difference. Acupuncture looks at the whole system. It looks at, it looks at the way that you're digesting food right down to, the pain that you have in your body. It's a much more holistic view of someone's body, not just a specific spot where they may have pain.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of the athletes are, just like anyone else. They have stuff going on. There's stress in their life. They're worried about, their next contract. They're worried about whether or not they're going to get cut next week. So stress and that disease is a big part of their disease sometimes. And so what's nice is we can add in more global view of their body and maybe put in some traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture into their treatment, as well as like treat local tissue in areas where they're having pain. But dry needling is the insertion of a needle uh, with the intention of eliciting a twitch response in that muscle.
Mhm.
So it's all about trigger points and its referral patterns and inserting a needle to get the muscle to fire or contract and release tension in that muscle. Um, that is the definition of dry needling, but needling, in particular dry needling, has kind of evolved, and now they're using more motor point techniques that Rich and I teach, and they're using electrical stimulation and treating joints and ligaments, and it all still technically falls under dry needling as well. But one of the things that I hear from a lot of players is there's a lot of bad practitioners out there, guys that are getting work done are having some negative experiences, and I believe that's because a lot of dry needlers just don't have the technique that an acupuncturist has.
Mhm.
There's a gentleness about needling that I think because of our experience and the amount of patients that we see we develop over the years, that a dry needler who maybe needles once a day or once a week, they just can't quite get that level of subtlety in the needle that makes guys comfortable. I had a rookie. He was a receiver, and I I won't say where he trained at, but he trained at a facility in California leading up to the NFL draft, and he never had acupuncture or dry needling in college. But when he got to this facility, where a lot of players will train, it's a sports performance facility to get ready for NFL Combine. He started getting needled, and apparently, he told me, he was like, "Dan, why doesn't it hurt when you put the needle in?" He's like, "Every single needle this person put in me hurt." He was like, "It worked. I felt much better, but it was uncomfortable to have done, so I kind of dreaded it." Um, he's like, "But I did it because I needed to get my body right." He's like, "But when you put needles in, it doesn't hurt." And I think that comes down to um, technique, something that we learn in school over years and years, developing that even before we leave school. And then, I always tell guys, I'm like, "Do you want to be treated by someone who does this once a day or who does it 20 times a day, every day?" It's like, you want someone who's an expert with that needle. And so I try to push guys to see acupuncturists in other states when they leave and move on to other teams.
Excellent. So, you think they're going to go all the way, Dan?
I don't want to jinx anything, you know,
That's right.
but
Sports is
but
sports.
they look good. Um, we don't know who we're going to play this week. It could be the Steelers, it could be Baltimore, it could be Tennessee Titans. So we're still waiting to figure that out today. When I get home, I was treating a couple players this morning um, over at my office. I'll go home and watch some football and see, but we still have to make it through that game, and then the Chiefs are waiting for us, and they're very, very good. So I guess I'll give you the old company line: one game at a time. I
Yeah.
think it would be great, and I hope we do. But um, you know, this is a pretty special season if you live in Buffalo. What's happening here and surrounding this pandemic, and the small businesses that are struggling around here,
Sure.
it's just bringing up everybody's mood a little bit in the city. It's a long winter every year, and when the Bills are bad, it's a longer winter, and now they're good. So everyone's kind of been in a good mood, and there's a lot more smiles around Buffalo. So
And unity, right? Um,
absolutely.
well, thank you so much for taking time out from treating these players and getting them in shape. And I never had a team that I was rooting for, but I'm certainly rooting for them now. And I would love to see you on the sidelines at the bowl.
Oh, I hope so. I hope we make it there.
Yeah,
I'll try to finagle my way onto the sideline if it's an option.
absolutely. All right, Dan. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your Sunday with me. And it's good to see you.
All right, good to see you too. And Braxton says bye. He's been on my lap this whole time.
Hey,
This is
Braxton.
our clinic dog. So he comes in every day and greets patients for me.
Awesome. Good work, Braxton. Okay, well, we'll see what happens this week, but I'm rooting for you guys.
Bye, Vicky. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Bye.